Right guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. So I wanted to get a bit more insight out there, some actual educated insight on what's going on with the Mykhailo Mudryk story. Today I will be bringing you some information cited from both The Telegraph, Matt Law, and maybe a little bit from The Athletic as well. To have some good, solid journalism on it, and there's some actual information to hopefully share that with you guys. I will link both articles down in the description. It's paywall journalism. Go check it out. I recommend both of them. We'll start with Matt Law, and if we have time, we'll go on to the Phil Buckingham piece and learn a little bit about it together. I've, of course, reacted organically to this story and to rival fans as Chelsea conspiracy, doping conspiracy, so feel free to go watch my previous uploads. But hopefully this can put it to bed, we can learn about it, and we can move away from it and talk about football again, but this should hopefully be insightful. I would recommend, I would welcome you guys to subscribe to this channel if you are interested in this kind of content. Everyone's most welcome here. Hit the bell if you choose to subscribe. And as all content creators ask, drop a like if you want to show your support. So we will start off with the article from Matt Law. Go check out Matt Law just for insight. He does have ins at Chelsea Football Club. He has insight, he has connections, so therefore his information is relevant. He speaks about how the Chelsea players are in the dark after Mudryk goes missing. So we're going to go into that now. Matt Law writes, as recently as Monday night, which was last night, Chelsea players have been asking friends and associates this, quote, do you know what's happened to Misha, as he's not been spotted around Cobham's training ground for a couple of weeks now? He's been gone. Head coach Enzo Maresca has publicly put his absence down to, quote, illness, while players were in the dark over the disappearance of their teammate until Tuesday morning, when of course the news broke about the positive doping sample. While previously provisionally suspended, that's what's happening right now with Mudryk. He cannot play with Chelsea or train at the club's training ground, Cobham, while they await the B sample analysis, which explains the teammates' confusion, particularly as one source insists. My cat is just next to the camera. His initial absence was at least partly down to an illness. Mudryk and Chelsea are sweating on the result of the B sample to determine whether he's facing a ban, and the FA rules says this could go for as long as 4 years, a 4-year ban from football, which would be very much throwing the book at him and would be the worst. My cat wants to attack this. She's sitting right here. I'm trying to read about something very serious, and I've got this intense cat wanting to play. Don't you freaking dare touch that camera. Nobody should assume his guilt at this stage. Mudryk's provisional suspension for providing a positive A sample, which they're awaiting the B sample, which is alleged to have found traces of banned performance-enhancing substance meldonium. So this is the substance in question. It's called meldonium. It's the latest chapter in what's been a largely unhappy 2 years for the 23-year-old. Okay, a little bit on Mudryk, of course. Last January, Chelsea had the opportunity to cut their losses and run when one of Europe's biggest clubs showed an interest in taking Mudryk on loan with a view for a permanent move. So it was a real big club that wanted Mudryk as recent as the last transfer window. There was also other clubs interested. Chelsea were adamant that Mudryk was a talent so great that he could win the Ballon d'Or in the next, I will crash zoom this, 2 years. He could win the Ballon d'Or in the next 2 years. Sorry, my cat is... That shaking is my cat on my desk. Mudryk to win the Ballon d'Or in the next 2 years. That may seem ludicrous now, but Roberto De Zerbi, of course, Mudryk's former coach at Shakhtar, and of course we know him as well as the Brighton coach recently, had already tipped Mudryk to become the world's best player. Like, many coaches and people that work within football think Mudryk can be the best, essentially. Mikel Arteta, of course, was also desperate to sign Mudryk and Arsenal before he was being gazumped by Chelsea. And Brentford scouts rate him among the best players they have ever tracked. And Brentford have an excellent scouting program. They've got excellent scouts. Doubts he'll ever fulfill his promise. Okay, so we can talk about this a little bit. It's a little bit more of the story. Of course, we know Iqbal. I'll just sort of paraphrase a little bit. That January transfer, Iqbal personally got the deal done himself with sporting director Paul Winstanley. They flew to Turkey to get the deal done. It's an initial £62 million fee, which of course we know can rise to £80 million. Some say 88, but Matt Law's saying 80 here. And of course, there was the bizarre social media thing where Chelsea put his name in their social media accounts before he'd signed. Yeah, it was a weird moment. They did lots of sort of stuff with social media, creating a god complex around Mudryk. This is what Matt Law writes. A player who had moved from a country at war and an inferior league, which is true, was childish and naive, which sounds a little bit like a hit piece of pointed against Chelsea, but I actually tend to agree. It was peculiar, and I don't think Chelsea would do it again. I do think it was a bit of a PR thing after the previous Russian ownership as well. I think they wanted to really gas up the Ukrainian superstar to Chelsea. That's my personal opinion. Chelsea's approach to big money transfers since would suggest they have learnt valuable lessons. You'd assume that. The club are offering Mudryk support, rightly so in my opinion, and have provided him with a programme to remain fit while he's not allowed to play with Chelsea or even train with them. He's described as being a shy and introverted character who socialises within a tight circle rather than with many of his teammates, and is thought not to drink alcohol. I've said this, guys, in the previous videos today. He's a reserved guy, he's introverted, he's sensitive, he's highly religious, he's not this like gregarious, boisterous character that's got a big ego and was just going to take performance enhancing drugs. I don't see him like that, There have been remained signs of immaturity his character as well as the game, which highlighted a critic on social media. Oh yeah, he basically fought back on social media to someone. Former head coach Pochettino tried to boost his confidence. Yeah, we've spoken about this. The crossbar challenge and stuff like that. So that is, Matt Law goes on a little bit more in terms of details with this article, but I want to move on and speak a little bit about The Athletic. I'm not reading all of it on either ones because, like I said, they're on behind a paywall. I just want to give you guys insight. So this is from The Athletic. Philip Buckingham writes the following: Mudryk is among Chelsea's most expensive signings, of course. Ambitious, the post-Abramovich era, £62 million, as we know. So what has he done? Well, Chelsea routine testing, so it was a routine test, have found what was called an adverse finding in a urine sample provided by Mudryk that led to provisional suspension from the first team. Quote, this has come as a complete shock as I've never knowingly taken any banned substances. So this is, of course, is what Mudryk said in his social media. He says, I know that I've not done anything wrong and remain hopeful I'll be on the pitch soon. So he's basically saying completely innocent. I'm going to be back. The Athletic has reported that Mudryk returned a positive test for the banned substance meldonium, like we said from the previous article. And this was after being on international duty in November. He's not featured since the 2-0 win over Heidenheim in the Conference League, which was on November the 28th. So, and again, what's been explained, it's he's been out with an illness without specifying, the Chelsea manager said. And since we've learnt he's provisionally banned from football. So let me just show you this. So what is meldonium? The sports people have found and taken it. So this is a little bit learning of what's actually been found with Mudryk. It's a prohibited substance in short. Meldonium is a heart disease drug developed in 1970 in the former USSR. It's designed to combat ischemia, a condition where blood flow is restricted to body tissue, muscles, and organs. So I guess it creates better regulation. It boosts metabolism and increases blood flow. There you go. By extension, the exercise capacity of athletes. It was added to the World Anti-Doping Agency as a list of banned substances back in 2016 after its inclusion in the agency's monitoring program. Former Russian tennis player Maria Sharapova has been the most high-profile case with this since. So a little bit more. Who's responsible for drug testing in the Premier League? It's the UK Anti-Doping Organisation. I think they just do random pulls every now and again on players. How often the players tested? I'm very much going through this, just picking out bits that I find interesting. They typically visit each club on 3 or 4 occasions throughout the season, and I guess they pull random players. Testing will most commonly take place at training grounds or post-match setting. The process will take as long as necessary. Some dehydrated players need to wait, of course, because they need to drink until they can urinate, essentially. How unusual is it for footballers to fail a drug test? Well, adverse findings are few and far between, and of course, most commonly have been found due to traces of recreational drugs being used. Footballers still party sometimes, I suppose. Biggest one, of course, of late was Paul Pogba. What are the rules around confidentiality for players who fail tests? Well, the FA outlines the process of anti-doping regulations. The player and his or her club are first to be notified as the initial samples of their findings. An investigation, including further testing of a B sample, which is of course what we're waiting now for Mudryk, follows, and the theory is that the process is kept confidential until the point of charge being set out. The coordinated statements issued by both Chelsea and Mudryk on Tuesday morning came after several, so the news that I reacted to in the very early morning video, that sort of pushed Mudryk and Chelsea to basically make their own statements. What kind of punishments are applied now? Nothing as of yet. The provisional suspension is issued by the FA, so of course he can't play and he can't train, and this is until they get the B sample back. If that comes back positive, the consequences could be severe for Mudryk. Doping bans typically cover between 2 and 4 years. I mean, I think Pogba got 18 months in the end, didn't he? Appeals can reduce the length of those bans, and that was after an appeal. If we look at what happened to Paul Pogba, his violation and the consequences that followed was a lengthy ban, says Jibril Trambu, sports lawyer. I understand the circumstances are different, but the point still follows. Anti-doping regulations are strict liability offence. Athletes are fully responsible for substances found in their bodies. It's irrelevant if it's accidental or intentional. If it's there, it's a breach. You could argue it's a reduced sanction if he can demonstrate no significant fault or negligence. As in, like, maybe a team, he was being informed to do it or advised to do it by a medical company. You'd imagine there'd be leniency on him there. What are Chelsea's options now? Chelsea have indicated the support for Mudryk, who confirmed categorically that he didn't know much about it. And of course, it's reference here to Mutu as well. Back in, when was that? 2004. Depending on what happens next, Trambu says, there might be enough to lead to a sacking through a breach of Mudryk's contract, but he is not convinced that the road Chelsea would go down. I think ultimately they will support him, and the best argument they will have legally is what they can do to mitigate the situation. So he's suggesting maybe Chelsea could rip up his contract, but of course they would be massively down on a transfer fee. Tough. So what we hope here is that everything is okay. The B sample comes back and everything's okay, and Mudryk's like, I think it's fine. But the fact how it worries me how his statement says he didn't knowingly take anything, because if he feels like he's definitely 100% clean, he'd be like, nah, it's nonsense. This is absolutely a false positive. Don't worry, guys. There's no way, and so I could have had something. I'm not worried at all. It's impossible. Unless someone's like drugged me, it's impossible. But he's like, the fact that he's like, I didn't knowingly take anything, it makes me think he's been taking certain things, and there's a chance, which will mean he will be, not the book thrown at him, but he will be found in breach, and therefore there will be a ban. And if it is a 2-year ban, maybe that gets reduced to 12 months if it's approached really, really well. And if it is only 12 months, then Chelsea will keep him because he's young and he's on a very long contract, and they'll just stomach and eat the situation. I guess there will be a thing where they probably don't have to pay him. They keep him on this contract. Maybe he gets like a very small retainer, but I'm speculating entirely here, by the way. So don't, and I wonder if they just keep him and say, right, we're definitely not paying you 100k a week. You'll get 3k a week or something. Sounds nice, doesn't it? But like but like, you know, to like live and stay fit, and then in 12 months time, again, theorizing, speculating, you can earn your wage again, but you got to keep fit and this, that, and the other. But like from Matt Law's article, from the first one, he's suggesting that Chelsea think this guy is like could be Superman, you know, and organically by not taking performance-enhancing drugs. So that's where we are, guys. We're waiting for the B sample, and we'll follow the story. But hopefully, that's all the information, the backstory that you guys will need. As always, I'm trying to bring it to you as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you as always for supporting the content. You can do so by liking and subscribing, and hopefully tomorrow we'll just talk about some football, and I'll hope to see you back then. Peace.